The music, again, I just can't tell you guys how it feels like we're all chilling in a caddy right now. All right, let's
kick
get
it back.
this going. As the founder and CEO of Chaos Lab, our guest today, Omer Goldberg, is pioneering a risk management platform for DeFi protocols. His work is truly groundbreaking, using high-fidelity agent and scenario-based simulations on mainnet forks. I promise we'll talk about this later and explain all. Chaos Labs provides a realistic testing environment for teams, enhancing the security and speed of their protocols. Under his leadership, Chaos Labs has secured $20 million in seed funding from the industry giants like Galaxy and PayPal Ventures, and has fostered successful partnerships with major DeFi customers, including Aave, Chainlink Labs, and Osmosis. But Omer's work does not stop there. He's actively tackling some of the biggest challenges in the DeFi space, from security and liquidity issues to the uncertainty of regulation. Through his efforts, Chaos Labs is not just providing solutions, it's setting a new standard for DeFi protocols. In a world where DeFi protocols are securing hundreds of billions of dollars in value, stakes are high, and the need for reliable, robust security is paramount. Omer Goldberg is the man at the helm of this change, pushing boundaries, challenging norms, and leading the DeFi space into a new era. Please, everybody, join me in welcoming the indomitable, the innovative Omer Goldberg to the Immutable Mindset. What's up, Omer?
That was the nicest introduction that I've ever gotten. Thank you so much.
We usually, I like to do this, and this is generally how we tend to start most of our shows with something like this.
Getting some energy up. That's how we're doing it, guys.
Yeah, man. I just want to edify you the best I can. You guys really do have an awesome background, which we're about to dive into. So might as well edify you the best I can to the audience and let them know who you are. So let's go ahead and we here like to jump into stories and tell narratives and like I said, introduce people into who folks are. Let's start with, I think a good place to start is with your time at Meta. I think that introduces a lot as to kind of how we get to this space. Can you tell us a little bit about your early days at Meta and kind of start there? On the internet org team, I believe.
For sure. So I started I kind of spent my life between like New York City and Tel Aviv, and started at Facebook.
Tel Aviv, right?
Yep. Tel Aviv office. Yeah, and like one of the really cool projects that drew me to Facebook was a project called internet.org or Meta. When I was there, it was Facebook. Yeah, it was internet.org, and the goal was internet.org was to build internet infrastructure to connect underconnected and unconnected regions of the world to the internet. So primarily we were working in India and Africa. I was working on the project for about 2.5 years, spending a lot of time in Africa, working with India and different parts of Southeast Asia. And we were really focused on kind of these rural villages. And the idea was to provide access to internet via Wi-Fi that was cheap and fast. And yeah, that was how I started there. During that time, kind of early connection to crypto was, I had been in crypto previously, originally Bitcoin kind of 2012, but in Africa was I really saw a use case for decentralized finance because no one there had bank accounts. And really they were using electronic money. I remember in Kenya, the most popular one was called M-Pesa, and kind of the way that it worked there is that they would take their cash to like a local teller in the village, and the teller would usually be working for a telecom company like Vodafone. They would deposit cash, and Vodafone would take it and then just charge credits to their phone number. And then the way that they would transact in the village was they weren't doing cash transactions. They were just texting credits to each other. So this was like crazy for me. I didn't know that about 65 to 70% of the world didn't have access to financial services.
Interestingly, to that point, and since you're bringing it up, interestingly, what your work kind of there really facilitates, or really there's a lot of kind of crossing when it comes to the financialization and what we're doing now, right? When you're going to these remote places for internet access, again, a lot of what we're doing, we talk about it, the mobile phone is this amazing tool. And the reality is, these days, internet access kind of equals being banked. And those that don't is bankless. So what key lessons and what experiences, during that time and doing that helped educate you, or maybe got you more interested in the DeFi space specifically, since you were, again, specifically kind of looking at those type of people that would be, that would best profit from this?
For sure. So I think like one thing which came up, which was which I kind of like the parallel here, was when we were working on connecting these areas, it was differentiating between unconnected and underconnected. So today, like the vast majority of media that streams through internet networks is video. And in Africa and India, you have these networks which are completely congested and older kind of like hardware, and they can't even support video properly. So the question that we were asking ourselves is like, okay, in this area in Tanzania, there technically is access to internet, but if you can't access 80 or 90% of what the internet is today, which is video,
And
are you
what
even
level
connected?
of internet are we talking? Like 4G? Are we even talking like? Is it more primitive?
There's 3G for sure, and there's 4G, but then also the issues with those areas, like you might have a 4G network, which in theory isn't that bad, but if you're in a highly condensed area like India, you have like 4x amount of capacity on the network that you should, and essentially it's like having less than 2G. So that was like a really interesting question. Like, what are we like? You might technically have, but if you can't access all the good stuff, then what are we doing? And the same thing goes for finance, right? Like, okay, so there are areas that, first of all, most of the world doesn't have access. And then even if you do, but it's like, it's super expensive and you can't
Interesting.
play.
You probably worked for one of the most centralized companies on earth, right? And so you really got the education as like you really got to see firsthand. You were in the belly of the beast, so to speak, as to like what centralized and like how the congestion and all that is. That what is playing devil's advocate, or the crux of that, you getting interested in the decentralized finance piece of that, or decentralization part of that?
Good question.
Is because you saw all this and how it affected.
So for me, like it started with blockchain technology like in 2012, and the technology was always fascinating. But Bitcoin, like it was a really interesting idea, but there wasn't too much you can build on it. And then Ethereum came out. The really early narratives of like Ethereum were like mostly like social and like we'll build a decentralized Uber and Facebook. And I was like, oh, like I don't really know why you need a blockchain for that, but okay. And then when I saw the financial aspect of it, it really made sense for me. I was like, this is the killer use case. It's money, it's financial services, and this is enabled because of this technology. And that's when I was all in. I was like, okay, this is going to be a big revolution.
Definitely. And so okay, so you start to have those thoughts, and you realize that this is a revolution. How do you enter into the space? What's the first rabbit hole you go down? What gets you in, like really like, okay, this is definitely it?
For me, it was so I'd been in crypto for like almost a decade when DeFi summer started and had all these like random altcoins in my portfolio, and it was the ability to kind of be an LP in all these protocols. And this was like novel, like to me. Like obviously, you can't be an LP to a lending protocol application in centralized finance, something that's reserved for banks.
Yeah.
But it was my own money, and I was really concerned about like the security risk. My background's in cybersecurity, so went really deep into the protocols and realized that I need tools to be able to test it. So like when you think about DeFi, the first thing that comes to mind, or all of crypto, is really composability, and to be able to like interface with different protocols and services permissionless in a permissionless manner. Amazing for bootstrapping new tools and new instruments. A nightmare from a security perspective because you're inheriting all of the flaws of each protocol separately. And then when you do composition, it's like the sum of the pieces is worse than them individually. And I was like, this is a mess. And actually, this kind of went full circle at Instagram, which was it was another role I did at Meta after Internet.org. I was working on feed and stories, and feed and stories is also notoriously complex. Like, what feed, what story do you see in your feed versus maybe Adam? Yeah, the algo. But it's not also the algo. It's like where is the media stored and how is it fetched and put onto your device? It's this whole thing. And then what I brought to my team was like, okay, like the amount of things that can go wrong is exponential. So let's do this type of chaos engineering. Chaos engineering is it's basically you have all these complex systems. You can't fathom everything that can go wrong. So you start purposely breaking different components of it to see how robust
kind
the
of white hat hacking in a way.
Yeah, it's like you're messing around. You want to see that there are reasonable fallbacks. Like if this service
The
like
resiliency,
dies,
the
like does the whole
robustness,
app crash?
redundancies.
Exactly. And then suddenly I was like, okay, like actually DeFi is a good use case for this. So I started bootstrapping this like simulation environment for myself, just so that I could have peace of mind as I was delegating assets into these protocols. And very quickly, other protocols heard about this. The early ones were like Maker, Chainlink, And they said like, hey, like actually we're trying to build new features for our protocol. The first time that we actually see if they work is often in production because we can't
Yep.
orchestrate the environment. Can we use this? And I was like, yeah, sure. And
So this
that
is the
was how it
genesis
started.
of Chaos Labs here. Were,
Yeah, this is
were
the
you,
genesis
was
of Chaos
it,
Labs.
did you develop it, the idea kind of all by yourself, or did you develop this with somebody else? The thought. Yep.
It was just me for a lot of the early months. It was just me. I left Instagram. It was like the peak of Corona, and just hacking along on it. But kind of it spread really fast, and had a lot of protocols that wanted to start using it, which led to the seed
Definitely.
round sometime in
And so the initial
2021.
vision was this simulation environment where you can test live code, you can put it through real life scenarios to test that robust resiliency, to make sure that you're deploying good code, and it's something that can happen, very quickly, so that it's quick iteration, quick feedback loop. That was the initial vision. How much has that initial vision evolved since then into what Chaos Labs is now?
It's evolved quite a lot. So we had like a pretty big pivot like earlier this year. So the original vision was twofold. One was for testing exactly what you said. The other was optimization. So like if you have the simulation environment, I can test my protocol against various like market conditions, and then kind of fine tune the parameter in the way that will give me like the optimal exposure kind of to risk and capital efficiency.
Yeah, I want to.
Sorry, Adam, you
Something
had
that's
something?
interesting to me because I don't think
Yeah.
we talk about it enough. What it really means to raise funds, right? We have an interesting mix of audience here. We have folks that are seasoned experts in the VC space. They understand that. But for folks out there, what goes into raising money? Like, let's just talk about the sheer amount of effort and time and like countless pitching and really having to know your shit and put yourself out there. So give everyone, if you could kind of pull back the kimono and tell us a little bit about what goes into VC funding.
Um, I don't love it. I'll start with that. Yeah, it's really different depending on the stage. So like raising a seed is very different than a Series A. And the general rule of thumb is that like the further along you are around those fundraising rounds, the more tangible and the more results you need to
Got it.
bring. So in a lot of ways, like a pre-seed or a seed is like you're selling a dream, you're selling maybe your past track record, and people are taking a bet on you. When you go down that spectrum to the more advanced rounds, you need to have proof that you have a business. We could have a whole discussion about that because that landscape has changed significantly over the
Right.
past 24 months.
The roller coaster of that, right? Where the checkbooks were open and now they're now it's a little bit like
Yeah,
Fort Knox in certain areas. But let me ask you this: generally speaking, like
definitely.
if we're taking a barometer or temperature check right now, today's the 16th day of the month of May. Where are we at, generally speaking, on funding? Uh, are the checkbooks open? Are they a bit more cautious? Do they really need to see proof of work, proof of concept? Where are we at right now?
And then just to that point, it was, just to clarify, it was about 3 months ago that you guys raised. Is that about right? 3 to 4 months ago, something like that?
It was like 3 to 4 months ago that we
Cool. Yeah.
completed the raise. So
Congrats on
yeah,
that, by
so
the way.
we raised
Congrats.
also
Yes,
like
yes. Definitely.
thank you, thanks guys. So
There's a
so yeah,
fundraising air horn. There we go.
so it was 3 to 4 months that we finished. I think it was like I will hope, but I would say that was like one of the worst times
Heck
to
yeah.
fundraise. But thankfully we were able to do it based on traction. Um, and then I think the earlier question, Adam, that you had was, do you need to show
Right.
results in
So you
order to
said,
raise?
but
Is
and
that
then you
correct, or was
clarified. You
it?
said it's based on your performance, right? So it's about
Yep.
betting on the jockey versus the horse at that stage. But let me ask you this, Omar. How do you personally like handle rejection? I mean, when you're out there fundraising, you're probably getting every 9 out of 10 is going to be a no, right? Like, so talk about like how you build up your own resiliency, your calluses, and your thick skin in the process, and how you get the rest of the team around you in that mindset, right? It's like, hey, listen, we only need a couple here to really help us out. Like, what's that like?
So first of all, yes, you only need a couple, or you only need to be right a few times, like very right for things to work. Um, it comes with it. Like if you're like, I think by definition, if you're in entrepreneurship, you're trying things which are non-obvious because if they were
Exactly.
obvious, everyone would have
True
done
indeed.
them. And you need to pitch that, and it sucks. I don't think that there's like a way around it. Hearing no is never fun, but you need to be resilient. Yeah,
Sorry, I'm
well,
having fun with the new soundboard here. It's great.
you need to be resilient.
Yeah.
I love it actually. I love it
Hey, we
actually.
do some fun stuff with it.
Um,
Anyway, moving on. So we got the VC stuff out of there, and now we got some money in the bank, right? Then what do you do with it, right? Like,
Yeah,
what's
what
the
does
plan to
what does
deploy the
that mean?
resources?
Yeah, what does that mean for Chaos?
I mean, so when I raised the seed, it was like, I think it was still just me. Like
Oh,
maybe
wow.
I hired the first person. Yeah, so there was like
Wait,
a
wait,
lot
wait,
of
wait.
things
I'm
that I could
sorry.
do
One
with it.
second. You raised 20 million on your own, like by yourself, no team, just you.
I raised like the first five
That's quite impressive.
alone. Maybe I hired one
Sure.
person towards the end of that, and then we did another kind of like financing event where we got another 15 later. But there was like a team in place and everything at that point. So yeah, like it was just building the roadmap. So this is like kind of where the pivot came into place. The initial idea was like, let's build a cloud platform. It'll serve two purposes. One is being able to do optimization via simulations at scale. So something called Monte Carlo simulations, where you do many, many, many simulations on a high level, take the results and average them out, and then kind of look at the distribution of results. And then the other was security, which we spoke a lot about. I was like, this is going to be great. And everyone was signing up and things were growing really quickly. And then very fast, we had like a bunch of customers who were saying like, hey, like this is like interesting. We really, really want the insights from the simulations, but we don't know how to set them up. We don't know how to
Right.
optimize things. And I was
Oh,
like,
you need us.
that's an issue. Yeah. And very like, and then they kind of like, after hearing this a lot, we're like, okay, so like the raw compute is not like what people need right now. Let's kind of go a layer up and build these structured products that have like these toggles and templates that people can play
Oh,
with.
I love that. I love that. So, and so can you in terms of where it's being deployed. So you're working with Aave, you're working with Chainlink, Osmosis. What can you share some of the experiences from those partnerships with these major DeFi customers?
Yeah, for sure. I don't even know if to say like
I know, I
customers
know.
necessarily,
Partners. I would
like
say
you sell it to a
partners.
DAO.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
strategic. Let's go with strategic partners.
sure.
There you go.
It's strategic partners, but I'll say that it's like we call it B2 DAO. It's not like
B2D.
B2B or B2C, and
B2D. Interesting. That's a
it's
new one.
it's
I
B2D.
like
Let's
that.
coin that. Coin it.
it's yeah, it's weird. Uh, it's really weird. So first of all, I think the one thing that's important to understand is that decentralization is
Yeah.
is a spectrum. So the level of decentralization in a maker or an Aave
Ooh,
is,
solid
different than
point.
maybe
Super solid
like
point.
Osmosis or a DeFi startup. And so that's number one. So just in terms from a business perspective, and I don't tell me if this is
No,
interesting.
please.
I can go deeper like on the sales process.
Oh, we'll
Yeah,
edit
it's
this
like
shit out if it's boring.
who's
Don't
your
worry.
champion?
Just keep going, man.
Oh yeah. So I'll just go and like edit. It's gonna be a 5-minute clip.
Here's your master class, everybody. Time for class.
And then so like who's your champion? Like if this was like a cyber startup, I'd be looking for the
Right.
CISO or the CTO, the person who has the budget. Here you need to pass a governance vote for the most part if it's like up and running. And that's like campaigning for office. You're like talking to
Good
who
point.
has tokens, what do they care about? Like what are the it's all
Interesting.
these dynamics that come into play.
Wow. Wait. That's a
So it's a
whole
different
nother
sell.
level. Yeah. So now you need consensus amongst now you need consensus
Yeah.
amongst I mean, everybody has an incentive as, if they're a part of the DAO. I get that. They're financially incentivized, but not everybody's technically sound. Not everybody might understand the absolute reasoning, or have the business logic with the technical acumen to understand why it's happening. What roadblocks have you run into trying to get things passed, trying to yeah. Well, have you had any issues or any impediments to deploying anything with any of these DeFi protocols, given that you have to go with the DAO as opposed to one or two people signing off?
Yeah, for sure. Like first, there's the business side of just getting a governance like vote across, and then there's the technical side, which is also weird in itself. On the governance side, it's true that everybody has a financial incentive for the protocol to be secure, but how
That's
do you
a good
price that
point.
is a whole other thing. Yeah, and some people want the budget to go to marketing, other people want it to go to security, other people want like a new UI. So that's the whole thing, and you hear everyone's voice, for better or for worse.
We need to make security
Um,
sexy again.
so that's one thing. Yeah, let's run with that. So there's that, and then it's like once you deployed, like how do you actually, so I can make a recommendation. Our system makes recommendations based on the simulations. How do you get that on chain?
Mm,
Because
how to
I
execute,
don't have access
right?
to like write to the blockchain directly. It has to be, so there's like another governance process of
Dang.
voting in your recommendation, with time locks. It's a whole thing. It's very, very different than traditional
So
kind of
I mean,
software.
given that they're one of the partners that raise money, you're kind okay. Let me be careful here, but you're kind of locked in here, right? So let's say thinking going back or playing devil's advocate, would do would you would you prefer working with entities that have this governance model, or do you appreciate that so many people are thinking and analyzing if this is the way to go, or do you like that kind of 2 to 3 person, the CISO, the CTO, signing off and saying, all right, let's do this, and then telling those people execute that code, make it happen, deploy that. Which one do you prefer, or do you prefer?
Yeah, fundamentally, like I believe in the space, right? So I
Yeah,
got to appreciate it. I got to appreciate the openness. I've seen what systems and countries look like when it's not open, and so
that's
I'm
fair.
here for it, right? Like I didn't choose this by mistake. On the other hand, like we are selective, with at least for the communities that we're engaging in a high touch manner, we're selective. Sometimes it can be just too crazy and not worth it. Other times, you meet like super thoughtful people, and it's actually like an incredible process. So your mileage may vary, but generally speaking, I think that this is, DeFi is going to be a substantial part of the future of finance. We're in the
Yep.
early innings of figuring out like what are the best ways to run these organizations. Um, it's why there's opportunity. It's not
Yeah.
always great, but I'm really happy that we get to work in this
Well,
space.
that's definitely that's one of the cool things about the space we're in, exactly, and exactly literally what your organization does. You test in simulations. We test, we experiment. We're in a nascent technology. We're in exponential technology. AI is coming. All these other exponential technologies are kind of like coming involved. Now we're worried about identity and authentication because AI is coming like a mofo, and things are about to get real weird with some real deep fakes
Real weird.
and so, I see your organizations like yours are just, again, making security sexy again. We got connected through Dave Schwed of Halborn,
Shred.
and that was a lot of our conversation was about that. And I can't imagine the next level when it comes to, again, DeFi, decentralized finance. As much as I love it and I am here for it as the ethos of our space, we freaking know that the bad people are gonna do bad things, and it makes it a lot easier. That's a little tangent, guys. Don't worry about that. Um, how has the current state? Well, to that end, to that point, how has the current state of DeFi and kind of exactly what I've talked about? How has that influenced the direction of where Chaos Labs is going, and what you got, or maybe what you guys are looking at in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, like because everything is transparent and because everything is open source, the security model is like completely like flipped
I know
around on
it's
its
weird.
head. Like a lot of security, like for banks, it's security by obscurity. It's like you don't know what code
Yep,
is running on their server. You might try to reverse engineer it, but like you're just guessing as an attacker. And here it's like
you're giving it.
like the attacker can literally
Yeah.
study your code. He can study your code for as long as they want. Then
Yep.
you get an audit, which is really actually everyone publicly publishes. And it's really funny because as an attacker, like I'll go straight to the, like if I was an attacker, I would go straight to the audit. I'm like, oh, this is what you checked. Now I know what you didn't check. And it's just like this kind of inverse like mindset. So you always need to be ahead, and security is asymmetric. You do 100 right things, you miss one thing, and poof, it could be like 200 mil. So you got to be on top of your game all the time, constantly vigilant. It's really 24/7.
In
Sounds like
terms of,
fun.
oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, since you
Sign me
just
up.
brought it up, kind of curious in terms of security audits. How does Chaos Labs conduct security audits? I know everybody kind of does things a little bit differently.
So yeah, so this is a really like cool point. Like, so what we don't do is we don't do the
Okay.
auditing. So I'll explain like it's kind of, security is like a stack. So I'll just like explain the things. Auditing is like, David Shred, he's at
Yep.
Halburn, I believe, and Halburn, they're an auditing firm. So they'll give you like 2 or 3 like security engineers. They will literally, these like humans sit, read your code, try whatever idea comes into their mind, and the end result is like a PDF, and they're like, here are a list
Gotcha.
of the
Okay.
things that we checked. Here's what we found. Awesome. What we're focused on is market risk. So you have a
That makes
borrow and
sense.
lend protocol or a derivatives
Liquidity.
protocol. The market is changing. Yeah, like how are you, what are the levels of leverage that you're allowing for? What are the collateralization requirements for that you're demanding?
Interesting. Okay. No. Yeah.
Does that
No.
make
Sorry.
sense?
I'm processing as.
Yeah,
Well, I thought I mostly knew, but no. That makes
yeah.
sense. Well, so then you're likely providing liquidity pools and marketing making services as well under that circumstance, I would imagine. Correct?
No, so we don't provide any of the liquidity. We
Or
maybe
with
work with a
right.
liquidity provider who's like thinking about how to deploy, and they might have questions around like, say like a lending protocol as a partner. They're like, yeah, if your security is what you're looking to do, put it in this pool. This is where it's needed the most, and
That's right.
we work with them.
And I think this might be actually something I recently read in way you're working with the GMX exchange, I believe, for derivatives, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the way in which you're working with them.
So for them, it's like they're coming out with this new protocol, which is synthetics, which is like an improved version of what they have live today. And then B, it's around those risk parameters. So like, what is the maximum amount of like leverage in a market? What is the max P&L in a market? All of these kind of risk parameters that are set that dictate the amount and kind of style of trading that you can do on a market
And so
basis.
then you guys just take a whole bunch of scenarios, run them through the simulations, try to break as much stuff as you can, and then how do you guys deliver your findings? So like you were saying, an audit kind of gets the PDF, it's humans doing it. Are you guys using any other way to help give feedback, or is it still kind of the human element?
So what we have live today for all of the protocols is the Chaos risk and optimization platform. And all these simulations are running basically all the time as markets evolve. And the results are piped directly into the platform. And the teams in the community can go and see it whenever they want. So it's like dynamic recommendations made on an ongoing basis. As a part of it, though, like we're often like really active in the community. So like when a new recommendation comes out that is impactful, we will go into the forum and like say like, hey team, like this is what we're seeing. This is the opportunity or this is the risk, and this is why we think you should make this and this update.
Interesting. Okay. So in addition, as you guys are operating in a chaotic environment, we got meme coins going crazy, shit coins going crazy, all kind of risks about. We got Ben.eth receiving like $8 million from people sending them. Like, what the hell is wrong with people? Can you regulation? With regulation being uncertain in the DeFi space, how do you guys navigate that as you're helping out these DeFi protocols that I'm sure have to be a little bit nervous about all that's coming? Just curious, what steps are you guys taking to ensure compliance as the regulatory landscape evolves, and how do you guys all work within the regulatory environment that we're in right now?
So I'll say
Good question, man.
that we work. No, it's a really good question, and it's one that I spend more time
I
than
hear
I'd
you.
like to thinking about. But we work closely with our legal counsel and make sure that that everything we're doing, that we're not endangering ourselves or the company in any ways. At the end of the day, I'm an American citizen. I live in New York, and I want to make sure that I'm following the law, of course. Edit this one out for sure.
Not totally.
But now more seriously, more seriously, so we have guidance on how to
Yeah.
do the things that we're doing. In terms of being a startup, there's a ton of uncertainty in the market, and you need to navigate that. I think for us, we try to develop and stick to our core theses about what is valuable in the space and where we think the market is going. And I think that in a market that's young and nascent, that those are the bets you need to make as a startup. And time will tell if we're correct in how we're reading the market. Staying relatively small and agile helps you react quickly when you get signal that maybe you're investing your resources in the wrong place. But yeah, I mean, we're getting the news like everybody else and trying to see where we fit into it. I will say though, that like my long-term thesis like for the space is that like stress testing, simulations, risk management, and optimization is required by law and TradFi
Yep.
to protect users. And we'll see where exactly regulation lands on this, but I think the same standards are going to be required in DeFi. And it's actually like, we look at this as like we want to work with a regulator. If we can provide like tools and assurances and testing that help push and expand the space further, like we're excited about that, and ultimately providing a better experience for users and institutions.
Yeah,
alike.
definitely. No, and everything about this space is the constant is change. It's the fire hose, mouth wide open in this space. Everything is nothing is the same from yesterday.
Drinking out of the fire hose, right?
Drinking out on the fire hose. With that said, and with everything changing, you guys working in this uncertain landscape, how do you guys stay ahead? How do you guys continue to provide these value solutions to your users? How do you figure out what's coming down next when you have, the other side are these players that are trying to beat you to the punch?
For sure. I think for me, it's like it's mostly like it's a highly technical space. So for me, I'm like always focused on like what are the underlying technological innovations that drive the space, and what can I do to like to kind of utilize like the ones that I think that are valuable and going to be here in the long run, and build tools around that. And then it's like maybe regulation sways or whatever, but fundamentally you're doing finance on the blockchain and these problems still exist. So it's very much like first principles. What is the problem here? Investing the resources in the technology, and if the base is strong, you usually can kind of pivot like the use case of it quite well. So that has been the thinking thus far, and just also from a business perspective, it's like my fourth venture, and at this point, I don't want to say jaded, but like I'm not married to any idea. And I look to the market for signaling, and like that's just in terms of like sales. Like if people aren't willing to pay for it, maybe it's not a serious enough problem. So those two things together, I'd like to think keep us pragmatic, but we're always learning.
We think about always learning, and we're talking about the ever-changing day-to-day, changes within the industry. But if you have your crystal ball in front of you and we're looking 5 years ahead, what do you think the biggest challenge for DeFi is going to be, like in the next 5 years, and what's Chaos Labs doing to get ahead of that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of two core pillars I see. I mean, first and foremost, it's regulatory clarity. Without that, innovation, especially since we're all kind of based in America, is going to be driven out of the States. People won't know what to do. They're going to look to different kind of areas, and that can be extremely stifling for the space. So that's, depending on how progressive we are and advanced, it can go both ways. That's number one. Number two, it's just security. Like the technology is amazing, it's open, everybody can see it, but the hacks that you have here are unprecedented in their size, in their cadence. If things are complex and scary, it doesn't matter how cool the tech is or how fast your layer two is.
I hate to say it, but some of these hacks, and I'm sorry for anyone who this has happened to, but it's kind of the cost of doing business to learn, right? Like we're learning where the vulnerabilities are, we're learning where the cracks are, and shit's going to happen. I mean, that comes with innovation. I mean, look what happened when they were inventing the car, right? Think about, before they're like, wait a minute, we could use crash test dummies. We could use crash test dummies instead of real people when we're testing these things, right? Like shit's gonna break.
Remember when you tried to download songs on Napster and LimeWire? Like
that was a good time.
You don't even have to go back that far.
What about when they froze like 98% in of like a 4-hour download for one song? You're like, no, I got it. I'm there. I'm so close. No.
The pain.
All right, bring us home, Kev.
Well, home is an interesting place. The
home's where the heart is.
We got technical. We got to talk about chaos and what you're doing, but at the heart of it, Omer, I have this funny inkling, this funny feeling that you started as a degen. Am I right? You said
I cannot deny that.
DeFi Summer 2020. Anybody that says DeFi Summer 2020 knows about governance yield farming and is a degen. Okay, so let's move on to the second half of our show called "Do You Shitcoin?" Come on, Omer. Did you get involved in the meme coin? Are you Pepe? Are you Team Turbo? Did you get involved in any of that? What's up? As a guy who's in the DeFi security field,
definitely have. Yeah, I definitely listen. For me, those those things are fun. And it's
right.
Gambling, and You need to be okay to. I don't ever recommend
Not
gambling
financial
more than you're
advice.
okay with losing, but not
Never.
financial advice, of course.
We always give it right before we say not financial advice,
Definitely
guys.
definitely not for me. But in the past, yes, I think now since running the company, a little less time for shit coins, but always always tracking and interested with like the new memes that catch. And the space is weird and funny, and it's part
Do
of
you do you
it's
get
exciting.
involved in like the NFT side of things, on the creative side, the art side? Do you get involved in that?
Dude, I am going to disappoint you.
It's
I'm
okay.
not big on NFTs. I think
Yeah.
they're super promising. Yeah, but I've been mostly in the DeFi space,
A million
primarily.
percent. So in terms of Web3, outside of the technical stuff, the side that we do for our job, like what excites you about Web3? What's cool to you? Is there any music stuff? Like maybe it's just the leveraging of the NFT technology. Fuck the PFPs. But yeah, just what is it that's cool to you about things that are getting built?
First of all, I think like one theme is transparency. So I think that's something that's missing, and it's going to change a lot of industries. I think historically we just believe people until we
Right.
don't believe
Right.
them because we find out, and that hasn't worked out well ever. And there's a chance to kind of shift that paradigm. So that's number one. General trends outside of DeFi and tech is like ability to kind of cut out any type of middlemen and kind of empower like micro influencer
Hell yeah.
content creators, people who historically had a lot of kind of gatekeepers in their way, to be able to kind of do their art and like share their craft with the world. So that's definitely exciting. Finance, which we've spoken about, I think it has the potential to be one of the biggest equalizers
Definitely.
that humanity has ever seen. And I think that's quite a lot.
It is.
And then there's also this whole trend of zero knowledge
Yes.
proofs, which has a lot of interesting
Dude.
applications as
Mm.
well. So a lot to be
There
excited
is there
about.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm super excited about being able to transact, the other person having no idea where the transaction came from, I not having to identify myself and still being able to. Yes, it's all incredibly interesting. It's just always interesting to hear from those that are on the technical edge, just on the the non-tech side, the marketing side, the entertainment side, what you're looking at. And I totally agree. I think DeFi is going to change musicians' lives. It's going to change athletes' lives. It's going to form a whole new way to monetize. So, in reality, what you're doing is going to help this space and help the creators and the creative side in a whole nother way that maybe people aren't looking at. So it was a pleasure to dive into what Chaos is doing, how you guys are simulating environments and helping these protocols get more robust and resilient. Because at the end of the day, the reality is, like, real talk, fuck WAGMI, excuse my language. Like, we're not all gonna make it. Come on, guys, have you not seen? Did you guys get involved in FTX? But we are all in it together, and there is a difference, right? Maybe we're not all going to make it, but we're all in this together to form a more perfect union. So appreciate the work you're doing with Chaos Labs, and really appreciate you for joining us the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. One shout out. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say to you guys, it was awesome, and the questions were super interesting. And thank you for having
No,
me
thank
on.
you,
I
man.
Hell
really
yeah,
enjoyed it.
appreciate you. Audience out there, please check out Chaos Labs. Okay. Or that one too. Okay. Check out Chaos Labs, builds and automates risk frameworks for DeFi protocols like Aave, DYDX, Osmosis, and more. Go. We will put this in the show notes in the link, by the way. But it's at https://chaoslabs.xyz. And to people at home, please let them know where to find you on social, Omer.
Yeah, Twitter is the best. It's just Omer A. Goldberg, so my full name. And yeah, I'm available. Shoot me a note.
You heard that first here. He's available. Shoot him a note. All right, y'all. To everyone listening at home, if you've enjoyed what you heard, tell a friend about us. Take 15 seconds. Leave a comment. Help us out. I greatly appreciate you guys for joining us on The Immutable Mindset. Please follow us on all your social media channels at Immutable Show. Subscribe, comment, network. We'll catch you next week. Take care. Peace out, y'all. Appreciate you.